we're going to jump into our top 5 teams again in the SEC only. Tyler, I will let you start with your number 5 team.
Well, yeah, I haven't changed mine from last week. If you were tuned in last week, it should be Alabama. They had an off week, so I can't really say much about them other than they played really well in their last performance at Wisconsin, a team that also had a bye week last week. They start Big Ten play. I think they actually play USC this week, so that's a pretty big game for them without their starting quarterback. Van Dyke went down. But I thought Alabama's offensive line played pretty well. Their defensive line, other than that first quarter, was pretty fine. It's a big game this week for Alabama at home. Game day will be there. My Georgia Bulldogs head to Tuscaloosa, and actually Georgia's a 2-point road favorite right now. So, yeah, Alabama stays at number 5 for me.
I have Ole Miss staying at number 5 for me. I just need to see a little bit more. I will say we're going to get into the Kentucky Ole Miss preview, so I have some stats with that now. I got more in depth. We'll have more stats for these teams this week because there's a little bit more data now. And Ole Miss's defense is a lot better, at least numbers-wise, than I thought they would be. They've actually been pretty damn elite so far. Now, have they played anybody? No. The best team they've probably faced so far, not probably, is Wake Forest. We'll see how that turns out, how good of a win that is. They absolutely beat the crap out of them on both sides of the ball. So we'll see, but they just have to prove a little bit more to me when we get into the meat of their schedule, which it is one of the easier schedules in the SEC. And I hate doing that because I know I heard about Texas as well. Like, they're still hard schedules, but when we're talking about SEC schedules, it is one of the easier ones. But we'll see how their defense does pan out the rest of the year. But so far, so good. But until they go up against a bigger team, I'm going to have them at number 5. Who's your number 4 team, Tyler?
For me, it stays at number 4 for UGA, another off week. I was hoping that Georgia's defensive line would start to get some key guys returning, obviously. Michael Williams and Warren Brinson. We saw a little bit from Warren Brinson against Clemson. And we also saw Michael for most of that game against Clemson until that dirty block by Phil Maffa, which is terrible, but it is what it is, which basically has caused him being out. Jordan Hall's another guy, and Xavier McLeod for Georgia. All 4 of those defensive linemen probably are out. Roderick Robinson obviously is out. Tate Ratledge obviously out. So Georgia's injuries are pretty key for this big game. Like I just said, they play Alabama, primetime game, at Bama, a team Georgia hadn't beaten in the regular season since 2007. Again, we'll talk later about the big game. But, yeah, that Kentucky game, Georgia got pushed around. Just let's be completely honest here. Got pushed around by a pretty mediocre at best Kentucky team, a team that will more than likely try to run the football before throwing, but still not a good look for UGA heading into. But the good news is they had a bye week. Big game against Alabama. This is probably Georgia's biggest game of the season. So, we'll see what happens on Saturday with that. But I think for right now, I'll keep Georgia just ahead of Alabama.
Yeah, so, and now this will be decided. I have Alabama at number 4. I liked what I've seen so far from the offense. I think Jalen Milroe has made strides. I would actually like to see Jamarion Miller get more carries than Justice Haynes. I think he's a better player right now. We'll see if that does happen or not. Obviously, Ryan Williams, 17 years old. Everyone knows that, but he's been phenomenal, guys. Like, there are very few words to describe how well he's been, because there's a real, if you could say this for real, like he's the best wide receiver in college football, you could make that argument right now. And then the defense, again, I looked into the numbers again today, and the defense is better than I thought. Now, again, the competition isn't great, but it's not as bad as I thought it was. But it's going to be interesting going into the game. Carson Beck versus that secondary, which is very young and untested. If you go back and watch some of the games, there are throws to be made there. They just haven't been able to – they haven't played a quarterback that's been able to expose the secondary. I think Carson Beck is able to do that if he has time to throw, because Alabama is pretty good at getting after the quarterback. So it's going to be interesting there how that plays out during that game. But for now, they are my number 4 team, and they could jump up to number 3. Obviously, they play my number 3 team in UGA, but I'll get to them in a minute. Tyler, who's your number 3 team?
Well, mine stays the same. Most of my lists actually stayed the same from last week. I still have Ole Miss. They've yet to be tested. In fact, all 3 of these teams ahead of UGA and Bama have looked just great for 12 quarters. Now, granted, or actually 16 for Oklahoma or for Ole Miss, but granted, they didn't play a significant opponent on the road at Wake Forest. Okay. Wake's a team. In fact, Wake's probably one of the worst teams in the ACC, could be fighting for the bottom there. And yeah, Wake Forest, they're more of an offensive team, and they shut them down, gave them just 6 total points. Georgia Southern might have actually be better than Wake Forest, to be honest with you. They gave Boise State a real good run there. They got a decent offense, especially for a group of 5 team. And Ole Miss did exactly what I thought they would and completely shut them down. I like Ole Miss at number 3. And Matt's probably going to, I think he already said he's going to roll with UGA. Now, reason why I don't have Georgia above Ole Miss is simply because Georgia looked terrible against Kentucky. Now, you're going to watch Kentucky struggle, and Ole Miss is going to beat Kentucky. Let's just be real here. But you're going to see the line of scrimmage for Ole Miss be a lot better than what it was for UGA against Kentucky. And I see these excuses every week when it comes to Georgia and Kentucky about, well, Georgia, it's hard for UGA to head to Kentucky, blah, blah, blah. I give Mark Stoops a lot of credit, and his style of football is solid, but at the same time, Georgia should not be getting pushed around. That's why I have Ole Miss slightly ahead of Georgia, and they'll be playing anyway this week. I believe that's a noon game at Ole Miss, and I guess Ole Miss's best team that they play up to that point. So we're looking at the comments right now as Jackson Johnson. What's up, SEC Nation? Yeah, we're both big SEC fans. He's a Texas fan. I'm a Georgia fan. We play each other here in a few weeks, which is funny. But, yeah, Texas has looked really, really good. And Arch Manning, I guess we could talk about him a little bit later. He had an okay game against UL Monroe. 2 bad interceptions, but 2 touchdowns. So I guess that cancels that out. But, I guess I can just move forward for my tiers there, as my number 2 team's Tennessee still. Boy, Tennessee has done a lot of damage away from home. You got to give credit where credit is due. Going to Norman, that's a tough place to play. I would definitely say it's top 20 and borderline top 15. Oklahoma fans might get mad about that, but Tennessee is used to those type of atmospheres, and it feels good if I'm a Tennessee fan, it feels really good that you can go on the road and beat Oklahoma. They did it relatively easy, I'm not going to lie. Nico had an okay game, but neither quarterback wowed anybody. In fact, Jackson Arnold played absolutely terrible. We got to give credit to that Tennessee front 7, forcing, 4 total turnovers. I think they had 3 fumbles and an interception, or maybe 2 interceptions. There was a lot of turnovers. That was such a sluggish game. Kind of what I expected, though, honestly. No offense, but I said it was going to be a defensive game. I had Tennessee winning that one 27-10. And, well, if Josh Heupel goes for it on 4th and 1 when it's 22-9, probably goes down, scores a touchdown. If not, adds 3, but about 3 or 4 minutes comes off the clock, then that it probably would have ended 25-9 or 29-9. But for whatever reason, it was weird that whole situation that he kind of let Oklahoma come back. Not gonna lie, with his play calling. But yeah, they're clearly my number 2 team, and then number 1, I'm leaving it with Texas until maybe Georgia jumps them or Alabama jumps them, because that's a huge win. But Texas has played pretty much perfect for 16 quarters. They have the best win in college football, pretty much statued with that Michigan win on Saturday, that come from behind thriller. The weirdest game I've ever seen in my life. I've never in my life seen a team go down the field running the football with 3 minutes left, 90 yards for the game winner. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Shout out to Lincoln Riley. He allowed that to happen. But anyways, Texas is my number 1 team. I went through my final top 5 there, Matt. The floor is yours now.
Okay. Yeah, my laptop went out. Sorry about that, guys. So my number 3 is Georgia. I just need to see more explosive plays from them on offense. And I think they're still trying to find that guy on the offensive side of the ball because you lose the best tight end in football in Brock Bowers and you lose another really good wide receiver in Ladd McConkey. And I mean, I'm underrating Brock Bowers. Like we're talking about a generational tight end prospect. So it's hard to replace that. And I still think they're trying to find that guy on offense to create those explosive plays. The offensive line has been absolutely elite. Tyler, do you know when Tate Ratledge is supposed to be back, or is he coming back for Alabama? Do they know yet?
No, he's not playing against Alabama. He's got a couple more weeks.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's going to be a big loss. I know it's Georgia, but that's still an all SEC, all American type player. It's really hard to lose a guy like that and then replace him. And then the running back position has been very good with Nate Frazier and those guys in the backfield. Obviously, Trevor Etienne. Defensive side of the ball. The secondary, when we get to that Alabama game again, been looking up stats. That secondary is elite, guys. The numbers back it up. The NFL mock drafts back it up. The recruiting rankings back it up. They're just elite on that side of the ball. Probably the best secondary in the country. So number 3 for right now. If they do show me the explosiveness on offense, I'll bump them up more. And I think they're going to have to be somewhat explosive to beat Alabama on the road. Number 2, I dropped Texas here because I think Tennessee has played slightly better competition up until this point because of because of NC State and then also Oklahoma combining the two. I think they're slightly more impressive than one Michigan win. The other 3 games Texas should have handled. I will say though, Texas has covered every game they've won so far. They've covered that Vegas number, which is very impressive no matter who you're playing. But right now I do have Texas. There's some concerns. I got into my preview about Mississippi State, and they're not great right now at running the football. I'd like to see them be better at that. I think they're averaging like 4.9 yards per carry. That's got to be better versus the competition you have faced. And I'm hoping Jaden Blue can stay healthy and that room can create more explosive plays in the running game. I'd also like to see Trey Wisner be more explosive as well when he's getting carries. But other than that, that's really their only weakness as a team. And then Tennessee has just been super impressed with me. And it's not really the offense anymore. It's the defense. Like, I know Oklahoma doesn't have a great offense, but the amount of speed and physicality they played with in that game was really impressive to me. That's not something you really see from a Josh Heupel team on the defensive side of the ball. So that was really impressive to see. And James Pierce still hasn't really done much. Like, he had, I think, half a sack in that game versus Oklahoma, and maybe he's just going to have a down year. But once he gets going, and I think he will, this defense is going to go to a whole nother level. So right now I do have Tennessee at number 1. I mean, this is very fluid, guys. Like I said, the winner of UJ Bama is going to jump up to me at some point a little bit. And also, how dominant are they if whatever team does win the game? Like, let's say Georgia blows out Alabama or Bama blows out Georgia. They could be my number 1 team going into next week. So it's going to be very interesting how this plays out the rest of the season. I'm going to be straight up honest with you, though. These are really the only 5 teams that you're going to see in here. I think you're just going to see the order jumbled up as we go. I don't see any other team jumping into my top 5. I don't know if that's how that is for you as well, Tyler.
Yeah, about the same. I was about to say that once we finished here. I thought LSU had potential to jump up there, and then they lose week 1. Texas A&M lost week 1. Arkansas, another solid team, but they don't really have the defense. Ironically enough, they held Auburn to 14 and had all those turnovers. We can talk about that later when we preview the game. But, yeah, I think those 3 teams are the only other hopes to maybe upset one of these 5 teams. That is LSU, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. The rest of the SEC, including Missouri, I don't see even competing with these 5 teams. Now, it's going to take a lot for LSU, Arkansas, or Texas A&M to win those set games, because I know LSU does play Alabama and Ole Miss at home. And if you've been watching Brian Kelly, he's going to probably get one of those games, to be honest. That's just how LSU is. They're a streaky team under Brian Kelly, 9 wins every year. That's just what it seems like. But yeah, maybe LSU's the last hope to jump 5, whoever your 5th team is, whoever anyone thinks their 5th team is. But these 5 teams are for sure the 5 best SEC teams that we've seen thus far. And to be honest, I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought going into the season, and I know you would agree with the one, I thought Missouri and LSU were the 2 most overrated teams in the SEC We'll get into where we were right and where we were wrong, and we can talk about that. But again, guys, can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. This is the second edition of SEC Live with Tyler and I. So please hit that like button, share it out, subscribe with your friends, family, wherever you can share it. Please do. Also, use the Amazon link in the description. Does not change the process, does not change the price. All it does is put a little bit of change in Mark's pocket. So please use that in the link, or use that link in the description. And then also, Mark has a great show Monday through Friday of the football season. He'll take your calls, comments, questions, concerns, super chats if you have them over there on the Voice of College Football main channel. So please go over there and subscribe as well. So Tyler, I think it's time to, I'd say, brag a little bit. And we'll also throw in one or two things you were right about, one or two things you were wrong about so far in the season as a whole.
Well, thus far, I think LSU's kind of been a disappointment for me, at least. I thought that they would be a much better defensive team, and I thought they would look more fluid offensively. Now, LSU's offense is not going to be a problem this year. It's going to be that defense. Now, Harold Perkins is out. That's the biggest loss of the season for the Tigers there. And that loss to Southern Cal is going to haunt LSU for the rest of the season. If they do finish 9-3 and miss out on the playoffs, you're going to circle that game right there in Vegas, but come on, in Vegas, week 1, in a situation they pretty much should have won that game. You kick a field goal out in the first quarter, boom, up 3-0. It changes the whole atmosphere and how that game goes. And Nussmeier missed a wide open touchdown in which LSU had to kick that field goal. And then the South Carolina game, they got outplayed and kind of outmatched in that first half, came back and won that game on a miracle. They're 3-1 now. If I'm a Tigers fan, I'm not feeling good about the UCLA win. Now, the second half, you played really well. But, yeah, I was definitely kind of wrong on LSU. I do want to say this, though. How about Arkansas, the Razorbacks? I had them going 7-5. That was kind of my hot take there. And I did say they're either going to beat Tennessee or Texas. Good luck with that. That's a really hot take right now. Arkansas's defense is just pretty bad, and Auburn found a way to make that defense look very, very good. Auburn's another team I was wrong about, though. Geez Louise, I thought this was going to be at least an 8-win team for Auburn. I was kind of disappointed they didn't go in the transfer portal to get a quarterback, though. They kept it with Peyton Thorne. That felt weird to me. He had a pretty bad season last year, but at the least of it, you thought that he would get a little bit better, right? Not worse. So Auburn's kind of another team that I was wrong about, but I did have Tennessee in my top 10. I had Tennessee in the playoffs. So those are two feel goods, Arkansas and Tennessee. The bad ones, LSU and Auburn.
Yeah, so I'll just start out with the bad, get that out of the way. I was completely wrong on Kentucky and Auburn. Those are like my two dark horses in the SEC. Not dark horses to make the playoff or anything, but be in that upper middle tier of the SEC. I had Kentucky at 8-4. I had Auburn at 8-4. Completely wrong on both of those. I believed in Hugh Freeze carrying that offense more than I believe the quarterback position. Clearly, that has not worked out. No matter what I think of Hugh Freeze as an offensive mind, I don't know if he has actually, I shouldn't say that. He clearly doesn't have the quarterback to run. Now, a lot of that blame does belong on him because he didn't go out and get anyone in the portal. And I do not know why. I don't know if Auburn boosters were holding back money. They needed to go acquire one. I don't know if he didn't like one, but this portal season had the most quarterbacks available, and he chose Peyton Thorne, Hank Brown, whoever you want in that room over those guys. And think about it, guys. Auburn right now would be better if they had Kyle McCord. Auburn right now would be better if they had Will Howard. And I don't even like Will Howard, but he's better than the guys they have in that room. It's just I don't understand the decision there. And then Kentucky, I was just wrong on Brock Vandergriff. He's definitely, no offense to the guy, he just can't throw. Like, I've watched him enough. He's not a good thrower of the football. He's a really good athlete, but that's not going to win you 8 games in the SEC unless you have like a stacked team around you, and they just don't have that. And I was just completely wrong on both of those teams. Now, where I was right, I said LSU was still going to be bad on defense. They are still bad on defense. That does not get changed in one offseason. You don't go from having in like the 100s or the 120s in basically every category and just get a lot better. Have they gotten better in some categories? Yes, but I have some numbers here to back up what I was saying. They are still 113th in yards per pass on defense. That is terrible still. I think they were like 120th last year. So congratulations. You made a nice 7-spot jump so far. And that number is probably going to get worse because the best quarterback you've played right now is Miller Moss. And I like Miller Moss, but there's better quarterbacks in the SEC than Miller Moss that you're going to play. And also Ethan Garbers actually looked decent versus you. And Ethan Garbers is terrible. You're 65th in points per game on defense. You're 89th in yards per play on defense. You're 92nd in opponent completion percentage on defense. The best thing you do is running. You allow you're 51st in yards per carry on defense. Congratulations. You're average at something on defense. Everything else you're still bad at. You're going to continue to be bad at. You can't just hire multiple guys and then have minor player transition there. Like, it's still most of the same players from last year. There's really no difference there until they get their personnel in. That's when you'll change. And then this one is for all you Oklahoma fans out there, because I had to go back, screenshot some of the comments you left me about basically there's a video that came out, and Parker Thune, who I respect, but people, and I'm going to get on my high horse here for a little bit. So when in the offseason, these companies sell you BS. Even if your team is bad, they're going to sell you the unicorns and butterfly scenario, guys. That's what they do. That's how they make money. They're not going to tell you your team's going to be shitty. And so they lie to you. And basically, your standards go up, up, and up for your team, and they shouldn't. I would ask you as a fan, even as a casual, if you barely watch, you don't look in recruiting or anything, just before the season, go and check out your roster, go and check out some statistics, and then base your opinion, because you'll know more, honestly, than the guys that are pushing the BS on you. And I tried to do that with Oklahoma fans. If Oklahoma had a more talented roster than Texas, I would admit it, because guess what? In the past, they have. They've also dominated us in the rivalry. I will say that here. But you're not going to tell me this year you were more talented. There's no metric you can look at. If you look at blue chip ratio, when you looked at transfers coming in, because they liked the one stat they did have is before transfers. Well, guess what? Then your whole offensive line wouldn't exist. And it basically doesn't exist now, by the way. It's freaking terrible. But also, if you include blue chip ratio with transfers, we're more talented. Team talent composite, we're more talented. Super blue chips, which is upper 4-star and 5-star, we have double the amount of players on our team that Oklahoma does in that category. So here's some of the things I got for saying that Texas is the more talented team than Oklahoma. Dalton Moore, this guy has no clue. We'll see you at Red River, you little fruit. I will say the last part of that, pretty damn funny. I laughed at some of these. Crane says, LOL, all you do this every year. OU owns Texas. He's right about that part. Arnold is definitely the better QB than Quinn Ewers. That is some of the stuff I got. Yeah, it's just bad. Texas lost way too much last year. This last year was their year. They will not be as good as OU will be, significantly better with BV's third year. Yeah, looking good. OU does have a better roster, bro. Stop it. You're basing your ranking off of Jackson Arnold based on one bowl game. That was his first ever start. Well, honestly, that was his peak because he hasn't gotten any better from that. Jackson Arnold is definitely better than Quinn Ewers. You know how many of those comments I got that Jackson Arnold is better than Quinn Ewers?
That's crazy to me.
I know, based off literally nothing. Not you couldn't even do recruiting rankings and say that. This will be the last one. This guy has absolutely no clue what he's talking about. Typical Texas fan that doesn't do his research. When I did a whole 15-minute video of research I did. OU's roster, top to bottom, is way better than Texas. Do your research, bud. OU has better depth also. This guy is a joke. Actually, no, you didn't do your research, and that's why I made a video, a 15-minute video of breaking down my research and telling you why Texas has a better roster. So please, before you comment next time, guys, come with facts. Don't come with emotions. Don't come with someone who is a snake oil salesman and sells you a bunch of BS. So that is where I was right this year. Kentucky and Auburn is where I was wrong. There, I got it off my chest because I've been wanting to I've been having to deal with this the whole offseason of Oklahoma fans telling me Oklahoma's going to be better in Texas. And there's literally nothing that was going to prove that to me until you did it on the field. And guess what? You're not going to do it on the field. So,
yeah, good luck, Oklahoma fans. There was I think that's the same Oklahoma fan. Almost messed that up. But Oklahoma fan that was saying do your research. If you go back to the Tennessee video, I've seen a couple of them saying about Dylan Gabriel. I'm like, you would kill to have him right now. I mean, let's just be honest here. you could easily be 4-0 with Dylan Gabriel. I'm going to be honest, especially with Tennessee's just offensively not being as good as maybe some thought. Now, I do want to say this. I predicted 27-10. I was almost right about that if Josh Heupel goes for it on that 4th and 1 when you're up 22-9. But I digress with that. That still irks me that he went for that he kicked the field goal. Anyway, but yeah, Oklahoma, I don't know what's up with their fans. They thought that they're going to come in the SEC and just not really dominate, but instantly compete with teams like Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, towards that upper echelon, which I just didn't see happening year one. So,
yeah, and I predicted them, like, I gave them literally the best case scenario for my season predictions. I said I predicted them 8-4, and I said that's your best case scenario. Maybe 9-3, but I thought I was fair with that. I still think they can go 8-4. Well, this week will determine a lot for me how that works out, and we'll talk about that game. But it was just got to be. I understand loving your team and everything. I love Texas, but I'm going to be real about Texas. When Texas was bad, I told people they suck, and why they suck. When they're good, I'm going to tell you why they're good. I mean, there was nothing to me that was pointing to Oklahoma of having this great year. They have a great wide receiver room when it was healthy. But Jackson Arnold proved nothing. Their offensive line has been terrible. And when it came in, it was 5 new guys playing together. Even if they were all healthy, it was going to take a long time for them to gel. I always said their defense is going to be pretty good, and it's been pretty good. So I don't know what I just said that was so hateful, but they were on my ass for sure.